Everybody, welcome to another episode of TBN Special. I'm your host, Habib Rahman, with you. Today, we have invited a special guest. He's informed by decades of experience in public service and is driven by deep care for Manhattan and its people. He's a strong believer in power of local governance to shape lasting change and continuously improve our city for the next generation of New Yorker. As a borough president, he leans heavily on his past experience as a public school teacher, community organizer, and two-term member of New York City Council. He assumed in office on January 1st, 2022. Borough president, as a borough president, he has been working to create more equitable, more resilient, and healthier city by striving to ensure the policies, the solutions, and work for Manhattan Borough President's Office benefits everybody, every people, especially historically disenfranchised communities like ours. He is running for New York City Controller position. Welcome, Mark Levin.
ধন্যবাদ। কেমন আছো হাবিব?
আমি ভালো আছি।
ভালো আছি।
Very
ভালো
good.
আছি।
Okay. So, first of all, thank you for your time. I know it's busy time. Election is right around the corner on June 24th. So we really have less than 1.5 week, I believe.
That's right.
So I really appreciate that you made that time. I'm going to go into some of the policies that people, first time hearing you in our community. Who's Mark Levin? I gave a little bit of intro, but I want to hear from you. Who is Mark Levin?
Yes. First, I want to say how honored I am to be here on TBN and to be sharing with the Bangladeshi community. I want you to know something very important. Bangladesh amar priyo. I love Bangladesh and I have so much respect for the Bangladeshi community in New York, which is growing, which is dynamic, which is a force in New York politics now, and which is leading in so many sectors of life here, from small business to government to politics to education to medicine. And I want to work hand in hand with this community. And I'm running for a job of comptroller that really does have the potential to support the Bangladeshi community. I want to talk more about that. But you asked about my background.
Yes.
I will tell you that I studied physics in college, and then I became a math and science teacher in the South Bronx. I went on then to get a graduate degree from Harvard University, where I studied public policy and also was a graduate TA in corporate finance. And then I started a community financial institution in Uptown Manhattan. This is a community credit union. It's called Neighborhood Trust, and it's made $100 million of small loans to families in Uptown Manhattan, helping families buy a home computer, pay for education, start a business, even become owners of their own homes. And so I really have a background in some of the key skills related to this job of comptroller, a background in finance, of running a financial institution. Yeah. And as you referenced in your opening, I had the honor of serving in the New York City Council for 8 years, again, representing Uptown Manhattan. I chaired the Parks Committee my first term. I believe parks are essential to healthy life.
Absolutely.
In New York. They are about public safety,
yeah,
about good physical health and more.
Right.
I also chaired the Health Committee during the pandemic, and it really stood up for science-based public health policy in that very difficult time for our city and our country. And now as Manhattan Borough President, I have been prioritizing affordable housing and have built thousands of units of housing all over the borough of Manhattan. This is the record I'll take with me into this job of comptroller.
Absolutely. And I'm going to come back with the affordability of housing,
good,
the loans for the families, and I'm going to bring in some questions from the small business, what we can do, what your plans are. But let's start with the Manhattan Borough President's Office. Your office is committed to creating more equitable, resilient, and affordable and healthy city for New Yorkers. Explain that to me, please.
Sure. I'm very concerned about public safety in New York.
Right.
And specifically the connection to the broken mental health system. And I know that your viewers have probably seen people suffering on the streets, in the subways, in the parks, suffering with severe mental illness. And you've probably asked yourself, well, why are they not in a treatment setting? Perhaps they would need a hospital care. What failed?
Right.
And I've worked very, very hard on this issue. And the truth is, Habib, that New York has really shrunk its capacity for inpatient psychiatric care in recent years. And the result is that many people are just crashing out onto the streets and the subways. So I want to begin investing again in inpatient mental health care in our public hospitals, places like Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan, in our state psychiatric hospital, including on Randall's Island. We have a large state psychiatric hospital. Creedmoor is a large state psychiatric hospital in Queens. But they all are at maybe 10% of the capacity at their peak. We want to begin to restore that so that people who are suffering can get treatment and not be on the street. This is one of my priorities, to make New York City healthier and safer. We can do this, and I'll fight for these investments as
Bellevue is one of those hospitals that's overcrowded, and really it needs some help. Because once you go there, you just wait for hours.
Yes, it's terrible.
It's
terrible.
4, 5, 6 hours.
Yes,
so I'm glad that you brought this up. This affects anyone, everyone.
It really does.
And especially if you're a lot of people who lives in Queens also goes to Bellevue Hospital. You know that, right?
Well, it is the crown jewel of our public hospital system.
Correct.
There's nothing like it.
Okay, so let's start with some hot topics. You are progressive. And whenever, even though most progressive communities, when they hear, alarm bell goes up, right? And then it's like, oh my God, not another crazy progressive. So, so you will have the policies, which are, issues and policies, and your position as a progressive. Can you shed some light into it?
Well, I think labels mean less and less today. They're getting stretched beyond meaning. I'm a person who cares deeply about economic, social, and racial justice, who cares about supporting vulnerable communities, and who wants government to be a force for good.
Correct.
So you can use whatever label you want to describe that. I'm also someone who understands that we have a public safety challenge in New York right now.
Right.
Statistically, compared to pre-pandemic, most categories of crime are up, and you feel it. And I talk to voters every day from all backgrounds who don't feel safe enough in mass transit in their neighborhoods. And I've called for investments to restore staffing in the police department. We are down 2,500 officers right now.
We're down.
Yes, we are budgeted for 35,000, and we have only a little more than 32,000. So that means that in precincts, in transit bureaus, it's hard to fully staff.
Short-handed.
We are short-handed, absolutely. By the way, the number of Bangladeshis in the NYPD is rising rapidly.
It's noticeable.
Yes, hundreds now.
Yes.
I believe over 300 and counting. Yeah, potentially more. It's great for the NYPD.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to grow.
Well, it is also great for our community because they also get to contribute and firsthand see what it's like to be part of the city. Yes. And part of the enforcement that actually keeps the city secure.
Yes.
So absolutely good. So Ami, I'm going to go into a few things. You may or may not. You choose may or may not to respond.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Thank you.
So our current mayor Eric Adams, I'm talking about, have many allegations. I would say, and when he was elected, he was popular. People liked him and all these things, but that just went away, right? And slowly he's losing his ground, and he's running as an independent. Yeah. You, as a controller, will be working with mayor, right? So you can't have contrasting views because you may. Yeah. But generally speaking, you have to be on the same page to get things done, move things along, right? Now, I was watching your first debate with Justin Brandon. I think back in February, was it?
Well, it was 2 weeks ago. Which one? The
very first one.
Okay, yeah, that was in February.
February. Yes, the 2 weeks ago was the other one.
Yeah.
So now, in both the debates, I picked up one thing, which is you said that you will stand up for the next mayor.
Correct.
Wherever that is.
Yeah.
Please explain.
Yeah. Look, the job of the comptroller, which is the second most important and powerful job in New York City.
Yeah.
The job of the comptroller is to hold the mayor accountable. Right. And there's real powers to do that. Audit, oversight, investigations, even subpoena power if needed. And I think the appropriate thing for a comptroller is to be totally independent,
Right.
to support the mayor when the mayor's doing the right thing,
Correct.
but not to be afraid to call out the mayor if there are failures, including corruption,
Yeah.
but also policy failures or fiscal failures.
Right.
And so I will be a comptroller who has that balance, who is fiercely independent and who uses the powers of the office to hold the mayor and every city agency, every commissioner accountable, but also who supports the mayor and city agencies when they're doing the right thing. That is the balance that you want to achieve. That's how I've led as an elected official throughout my career. That's the kind of elected official I'll be if I'm lucky to be comptroller.
Yeah, I just want to tell you and then take your pick on this. We have been watching polls,
Yeah.
right? So closely. Election is right around the corner.
Yep.
The mayor's election, Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah.
It is very interesting because nobody thought Cuomo would get any opposition. His establishment.
Yeah.
And Mamdani is way far to left. So you have this big, differences between them.
Right.
But the polls are suggesting the gaps are closing, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because of who Mamdani is and what he stands for and his openness for what he thinks and believes.
Yeah.
And the closing gaps is surprising.
Yeah.
I was watching your poll numbers, and you are leading in your polls.
Yeah.
By a double-digit margins,
Yes.
which is good. So,
Yes, it is.
should you be elected as a controller? I hope you do, and then we get to talk again after that. But there will be some big challenges for you. One of those challenges is if Andrew Cuomo wins, and many think that he may at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You seem to focus on more on affordable housing.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to other stuff that you are actually the proponent of, the affordable housing facilities for New Yorker.
Yeah.
You're going to run into issues with Andrew Cuomo because the construction lobby is for him. I was watching today earlier that the Rose real estate or those companies are donating huge chunk of money in Andrew Cuomo's campaign.
Yeah.
There are 10 I can name. They donated good amount of money.
Yeah.
From central Manhattan to south of Central Park.
Yeah.
Big real estate companies. So Cuomo is getting their support. Can you really do it without housing lobby? What do you think?
Look,
backing of housing lobby.
We need to build more housing.
Right.
We have a desperate shortage of housing.
Okay.
By some estimates, we have a shortfall of 500,000 homes. If you look at population and job growth in recent years, and you see just how little housing we have built, it's pretty clear we have a housing shortage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is pushing up rents. If you understand basic economics, if you have a shortage of something, the cost goes up. And we have a shortage of housing. And so what you're seeing is bidding wars on rental apartments.
Yes.
Which has not happened in New York City in the past. Sure, we're known for bidding wars on co-ops and condos, but even rentals. And I get a monthly report on rents. And we broke a record high.
Yeah.
Where average rents in Manhattan are over $5,000 a month. But even in Queens, a 2-bedroom apartment can easily go for more than $4,000 per month.
Depends where you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's pricing out not just low-income families, but middle-class families as well.
Right.
This is a very serious threat to the future of the city. We've got to build more affordable housing. I put forward a plan to do that as comptroller, where we will invest some of our pension money in a prudent way that'll get good returns, that will ensure we protect the assets of our pension funds, and will finance affordable housing that would not otherwise be built. This could produce as much as 70,000 additional units of housing, affordable housing, all over the 5 boroughs. And I've done this in Manhattan. We just opened a building in northern Manhattan in Inwood, north of Dyckman Street. We knocked down an old library. We built back the library, beautiful new library. On top, we put 172 apartments.
Correct.
A 2-bedroom in that building, Habib, goes for $680 a month.
No way.
Yes.
Really?
Really.
And that's all we need, many more of these.
We need 200 more buildings like that.
Yeah.
Probably.
How many units are there?
172.
Wow.
But here's the thing, Habib. We had 80,000 applications for those units.
No kidding. No kidding. That tells you where we are and where we ought to be.
Yes.
Right?
So, we've got to build more. We've got to build more affordable housing in Queens, in every borough of New York City. We can do it, and it's going to be my top priority as comptroller.
Okay. So that brings me, or leading me to that discussion of budgeting. Because to build things, you need money.
Right.
You need finance.
Right.
So New York faces chronic budget issues, especially Trump administration in power. Trump declined to support some of the projects.
Yes.
You might know, and you must know.
Yes.
So how would you make New York a better place so that your support for rent freeze, later this year comes to a fruition?
Yes. Look, I want to be clear that New York City is an economic engine for this country, that we send far more in taxes to the federal government of Washington than we get back in services, probably tens of billions more. And we're effectively subsidizing the other states. So it's really outrageous that given that imbalance, Trump is threatening to cut allocations even further for New York.
Right.
He is going after healthcare. He is going after food assistance. He is going after housing assistance and more. Yeah. And this really could hurt New York City, could hurt our people, could hurt our economy. And we need a comptroller who's going to stand up for that. I have called for adding money to our reserve funds in the budget that is going to be passed just in the next couple of weeks so that we have a bigger buffer. In case there are cuts from the Trump administration, we can fill in the gaps for healthcare, for places like Bellevue Hospital.
Of course.
Bellevue Hospital depends on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Actually, a majority of the patients are covered by Medicaid. So if there's Medicaid cuts, it hurts Bellevue Hospital. The city's got to be ready to jump in such cases.
Correct.
And I'm going to fight for a budget that can fill in those gaps if there are cuts coming from Washington.
Mark, I want to point out one thing. I was listening to Donald Trump yesterday when he was at the bill signing ceremony.
Yes.
At one point, it was like 2 hours. Anything he does is grandeur thing.
Okay.
So his signing ceremony was 2 hours and 12 minutes. As a journalist, I had to endure this, sit down, watch, and see what he says, right? At one point, he said, there was a question from a journalist that said, how about the Medicare and Medicaid?
Right.
There will be a big cut from this big, beautiful bill, right? And he said, if anything, we're making it better and stronger. I want your comment on that one, because you just said, this is what we need more than in the M's. But he's cutting in his bill, but he is actually contrasting what's in the bill as opposed to what he's saying.
Yes.
Can you clarify this? Is it misinformation? What should people actually know from you?
The president and his allies in Congress are promising to cut $800 billion, not million, $800 billion from Medicaid. So there's no way that's improving the program. It means potentially that millions of people in this country will lose coverage from Medicaid, and potentially others will have reduced services. This will hit New York very hard. We have 4 million people in New York City, including members of the Bangladeshi community, of every community, that are covered by Medicaid. It's 1 out of every 2 people in New York is covered by Medicaid. And if there are cuts to the program, it's going to hurt access to healthcare in New York. There's no way around it.
Right.
And I want to be clear why they're making these cuts. It's to fund tax cuts to very wealthy Americans. They want to reduce taxes on millionaires and billionaires. And to do that, they want to counter it out by reducing funding for health care, for Medicaid. It's unconscionable, and I'm calling it out. And I want New York City to fight back. I will fight back as the next comptroller.
Thank you. They say follow the money.
Yes.
You just said some numbers, which is I'm following your numbers.
Yes.
Numbers don't lie.
Exactly.
Right? They are what they are. Now, I'm going to come back to you because it has something to do with the small businesses in our community, in 5 boroughs, in Manhattan, everything. Yeah. But before that, most of the left progressives, they are into cutting the police department or, departments such as NYPD. You are not there.
No.
So I'm going to hear a clarification from you on that.
Yeah.
Plus, you said something, two things I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah.
You support rent freeze.
Yes.
We need, if you could explain to us what it means and how does it help people.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, you said you are going to do audit on NYPD spending on overtime.
Right.
You want to invest pension fund. So Justin Brennan was here. You said he was going to divest from Tesla. What's your plan? I'm going to hear from you. So we already talked about the new affordable housing and support for universal. Oh, we did not talk about universal childcare. So I'm going to come back to that. Let's talk about NYPD spending overtime that you're going to do. Audit. What does that mean?
Yes.
And the pension funds.
Sure. Look, we have public safety challenges in New York. Most categories of crime are up over the past 5 or 6 years if you compare to pre-pandemic. They're down, thank goodness, relative to more difficult times in the city's history, like the 1990s. But they're up in the last 5 or 6 years. Crime numbers are up. We've got to do something about it. And in this environment, we're actually short of headcount in the NYPD. We're budgeted for 35,000 police officers, but we have, because of retirements and resignations and the slow pace of hiring, we are short over 2,500 police officers. So that's impacting every precinct. It's impacting our presence in the transit system. And I've called for restoring that staffing. There's a connection to overtime because when you're short full-time staff, you're forced to push your workforce farther and give them more and more overtime. That's a lose-lose. It costs a lot of money because you're paying time and a half. It's also not good for the morale of the police officers because these are young people with families. And if they're working long hours every day, day after day, weekends, evenings, they aren't going to see their family and maybe they have young kids. So it's also hurting the morale of the department. The better thing to do is to hire full-time, fill those 2,500 vacancies, and stop relying so much on overtime. This is the sensible plan for improving the department and improving public safety, so we then can have more officers in precincts, on the street, on the subways, and around New York City.
Okay, let's talk about universal child support.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Who is it for? And how does who does it support? And how do you plan to implement this? We're gonna keep it tight because
I'll be quick. Look, we've talked about the affordability crisis in New York, and mostly that means rent and housing. But the second biggest affordability challenge for families in the city is the cost of childcare, which can cost as much as $20,000 a year per child, and that's just out of reach of most families. So we've put forward a plan that would extend the very successful UPK, Universal Pre-Kindergarten, down to younger ages to cover that gap from 6 weeks to 2 years, and would also guarantee every family a free childcare slot in their neighborhood. This has been a very important plank in my campaign platform. It will change life for working families. It'll be good for our city. It'll allow parents to go back to work as opposed to staying in their homes. This is a good economic plan, and it'll help families who are struggling with the cost of childcare. It's one of my top priorities.
Yeah, and it's people who are watching. I just want to tell you, it doesn't only help the child; it also helps you. Either maybe you need a break, maybe you want to go back to a job. It's fundamental to family planning and family building. So I really appreciate that because not too many people actually like it. I'm going to ask you a question and you will have 30 to 40 seconds to answer because I'm going to go into Bangladeshi communities and stuff like that. So half of the New York City voters think mass deportation of undocumented immigrants in New York City is negatively impacting the city, while 30% are saying positively impacting the city. 20% are unsure. What's your take?
It's one thing to talk about deporting people who have committed violent crimes. I support that, and I think most New Yorkers support that. But what the Trump administration is doing now is targeting working families, men and women who are just trying to provide for their kids, who are positive members of a community. And the way that they're deporting, detaining, and tearing apart these families is reprehensible. I'm adamantly opposed to it. Most New Yorkers are as well. And I will do everything I can to help defend hard-working families who are doing nothing but trying to make a better life for themselves and their families.
Okay. Let's come back to Bangladeshi Americans. And so Bangladeshi Americans are growing, okay, in New York City especially. However, we have many issues, congestion issues. Many people think the city is not safe. If you were to be elected, what is how you are going to contribute or help the Bangladeshi community in generally speaking?
Yes.
If that's one question, you have 1 minute.
Okay.
And then why should people vote you and not the other person?
Okay. Well, first of all, the Bangladeshi community is very important to me. It's a growing community in New York, and it deserves a seat at the table. And if I am comptroller, my doors will always be open to the Bangladeshi community. You will always have a seat at my table. I promise you, I am the only person in this race who can say a few sentences in Bangla. And it's just representative of my love and respect for this community that is struggling now in many ways with the affordability crisis, with public safety. And this is an office of comptroller that can help Bangladeshi small businesses, can help Bangladeshi families. This will be my commitment if I'm elected the next comptroller of New York City.
Mark, I was watching the recent polls.
Yes.
So according to recent Emerson College polling, you are the first choice, roughly 39%.
Yeah.
All right. So you're leading the path of the registered Democratic voters.
Right.
It's a Democratic primaries, of course, right? Brandon has 17%, who was here last week.
Yeah.
Nearly 30% of the respondents of this poll are undecided.
Right.
So people who are watching today, there are many undecided. What is that your message for those people?
Yes. Look, we need a comptroller with a record of fighting and winning on behalf of New York City. This is what I've done my whole career, since my days as a public school teacher in the South Bronx, since I founded a community financial institution in Uptown Manhattan that's made $100 million of small loans in the community, since my days as a city council member, winning many legislative battles, including establishing a right to an attorney for all tenants facing eviction in housing court, and through to my time as borough president, fighting and winning the development of thousands of units of housing, including deeply affordable housing all over Manhattan. This is my record. As comptroller, I will continue to fight and win. I'll be fiercely independent of whoever the next mayor is. I will not hesitate to take on the Trump administration if they target our budget, our economy, our people. This is who I've always been. This is how I'll lead as the next New York City comptroller.
Last question.
Yes.
Small business, you will have 40 seconds.
Okay.
Small business, and you said you have a plan for small businesses.
Yes.
They can grow and start. Please explain.
As Manhattan Borough President, we created a loan fund, $2 million loan fund, which offered 0% interest loans of up to $50,000 to small businesses all over the city. It's been incredibly successful. I want to grow this and go citywide so that every business who needs it has access to capital to grow. And I want to make the city a partner, not an obstacle, so that all the challenges of getting permits and licenses, that we can reduce this. I'll use the comptroller's office, including the audit power, to ensure that we empower small business, that we support you with access to capital, and that you can grow in our city.
So people, the viewers, you are watching and listening to Mark Levin. This is a race for New York City Comptroller 2025. The election is on June 24. Make sure you go and participate in the election, regardless of who you vote. It doesn't matter, but your participation does matter. And if you like what you heard today from Mark Levin, then please, consider him as your candidate. Mark,
can I say very quickly?
Yes, please. Any last word?
Dhanyabad, Habib. And to all of you, Amar naam Murkus, Bangladesh Amar Priyo. Dhanyabad, Khodafez. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. এই ছিল এখনকার মতো শুভরাত্রি।
TBN 24 টেলিভিশন দেখতে আজই কল করুন 7187776556। লগ ইন করুন www.totalcablebd.com।
নিউ ইয়র্ক থেকে সম্প্রচারিত TBN 24 টেলিভিশন বিশ্বজুড়ে বাঙালির কণ্ঠস্বর।